identified in a lot of ways with the trans. He was out.
Hi, I'm Diana Montford, and this is Yes, the Diana Montford Show. My guest is Mr. Carl Siciliano, who runs the Forney Center for Homeless LGBT Youth in New York. He is going to tell us all about the Forney Center and the what young homeless LGBT folk go through and how we can help them. And if you're a young homeless LGBT person, this is the show for you. Please avail yourself of Mr. Siciliano's services and the Forney Center. Anyway, my guest, Mr. Carl Siciliano. Hi there, how are you? Here, we have to move closer because of the camera. Okay, so now, what exactly is the Forney Center?
The Forney Center is the nation's largest organization dedicated to homeless LGBT youth. Mm-hmm. There's a terrible problem in our community, which is that as LGBT people are finding the courage and the honesty to come out at younger and younger ages than ever before, many thousands of them are being rejected by their families and often cast out to the streets.
On what basis? On the basis of being gay?
Yeah, it's about, studies are showing that an LGBT youth is 8 times more likely to experience homelessness than a straight youth. It's because there's so many parents in our country who just can't cope with having a gay child.
How can they, that's like saying they can't cope with having a child who likes playing the piano. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Obviously.
Are these people fundamentalist religious folk?
A recent study that looked at family rejection found that parents who identified themselves as strongly religious were 3 times more likely to reject their children and put them out for being LGBT than parents who were not strongly religious.
How can they reconcile, God's love for all living creatures with homophobia, the homophobic prejudice that they themselves, the parents, feel? How can they? Christ said, don't. He who hurts the least of our number hurts all of us, or words to that effect.
I find it baffling. I mean, I used to be a monk in a monastery.
Come closer, no, not because you were a monk.
Many years ago.
Demonkify you, but because it's better for the camera. Get over here, you monk.
Well, I've been demonkified for a long time now.
That's good.
But I know my theology, and I've studied the Bible. I've read it many times, and I know that Jesus taught of a loving God who loved like a parent, who would never turn his back on his child, who was infinitely merciful and compassionate. So I feel that the people who do this in Christ's name are really...
That is incredible.
They're not following Christ. They're following something else. They're following hatred and bigotry, but they're not following the teachings of Jesus.
Absolutely not. I mean, they would have tossed a stone and said, "Die, you whore," to that poor woman being stoned and all that,
Right. Jesus hung out with the prostitutes and the outcasts of his society and told people not to judge and to forgive and to be merciful. So, I don't know how you end up with this kind of self-righteous, cruel condemnation that's happening so often in the name of Christianity.
I really don't who are these semi-literate asshole hicks who kick their little kids out into the streets? So the little kids who lived a very sheltered religious life then wind up, prostitutes and drug addicts and all this?
It's not just hicks. It's, a Republican presidential candidate in the past has thrown out his daughter for being a lesbian.
Which one was that?
Alan Keyes. He's run for. He's never gotten any traction. He ran, I think, against Barack Obama for the Senate seat in Illinois several years ago.
And he threw his daughter out because his daughter was a lesbian?
Well, his daughter wasn't living at home, but she was going to college, and when he found out that she was a lesbian, he stopped providing her with any support. And I believe the Point Foundation stepped in and helped her continue to be able to go to... The Point Foundation is a wonderful organization for LGBT youth that helps youth get scholarships. So many parents... the worst case scenario is what we face at the Forney Center, where often parents abruptly will take their kid and throw them right out on the street.
For being gay.
For being gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or even for thinking that the kid is. But many kids just don't get the same level of support. Like, they'll get to be 18 and the parents will say, well, we can't support your lifestyle, so we're not going to pay for you to go to college and you can't live at home anymore.
All because they're gay?
Because they're gay. Because, well, we live in a very divided society. Everybody's making a big deal right now that, like, in New York State, for example, which is, I guess, is one of the most progressive and liberal states, the recent polls showed that 54% of the people in New York State support gay marriage. But that means that 46% don't. It's like we live in a very divided society, and there are a lot of people in our society, millions of people, who think homosexuality is immoral, wrong, evil, and when they suddenly have a homosexual sitting in their living room, they don't know how to cope with it.
My family was exceedingly supportive of my transgender self, and they were very nice and couldn't do enough for me, so this is like something from another planet to me, that people would dislike their children for being gay. I just don't get it.
I actually feel it very personally because I came out to my father when I was 22, and he never spoke to me again. I mean, I was already on my own, already supporting myself, so, I wasn't like economically dispossessed like so many of the kids I work with. But, if I'd come out when I was 15, I would have been facing the same kind of stuff.
That's awful. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and my father's not even religious, so it's not just religious people. He's more like, I think, a macho Italian who just didn't,
So why did you become a monk?
Why did I become a monk?
Yeah.
I was young and confused. I loved Jesus, and I loved God, and I wanted to pray, but, I also, it's funny, I had a crush on this guy, and I was still a virgin. I didn't know how to cope with it. I think, I wanted to avoid my sexuality by going into an environment where you didn't have to be sexual.
Well, that's funny, because, I told you I was 6 years old. I lost my virginity at the age of 6 in summer camp when the head priest drugged and raped me.
That's just really terrible.
No, actually, he was pretty good at it. But still, those are the jokes, folks. But anyway, yes, and that was terrible, and I'm very sorry he did that, but he did. And life goes on, as it always must. Who was Ali Forney?
Ali Forney was a young person who was put out by his family when he was 13 years old. He grew up in East New York, and he was very effeminate, and when he started, hitting puberty, like, everybody could tell how remarkably effeminate he was. And he would get beaten up all the time in the housing project he was living in, and his mother didn't know how to cope with it, and she put him out.
She didn't know how to cope with his being the eye of the hurricane, drawing all this attention, or she didn't know how to cope with his being gay?
I think both, a combination of the two. So he tried to live in foster care, and at that time, back in the late 80s, there were no foster care group homes for gay youth. So he'd go to these foster care group homes, and all the other kids would beat him up and attack him, just like he was being attacked in his housing project. And by the time he was like 15 or 16, he'd given up and was just out on the street trying to make it on his own. He survived through prostitution.
Wasn't he also transgendered to a degree?
Ali identified with the trans community. We used to have a trans support group at Safe Space, and Ali would always go to that. Part of the day, Ali would be presenting as male and dressing, as a boy, and would be Ali. And part of the day, Ali would be dressing as female and presenting as female, and her name would be Luscious.
Was Ali genuinely transgendered, or was he doing it to be a more successful prostitute?
It's interesting. Some of the people that knew Luscious only knew Luscious as Luscious, and are mad at me that I called it the Ali Forney Center. Ali used to be the star of our talent show. We'd put on a talent show every year at this drop-in center that I did, and when it was time to put the program together, I would always ask Ali, "Do you want to be listed as Ali, or do you want to be listed as Luscious?" Mm-hmm. And he always said, in public, I want my name to be Ali Forney. Okay. So, when I just decided to name the program after Ali, I felt like there was a part of me that wanted to call it the House of Luscious. But, I just felt like since when
What's
I
your
would...
ball? It would sound like one of those ball organizations.
Yeah, well, I have really fond memories of sitting next to Ali at the 1996 House of Latex Ball. And he would just like have a meltdown when somebody came out and was really fierce with like, voguing or having an amazing little outfit.
Good.
And he was trying to convince me that I should walk in the category of schoolboy realness,
Well, there you go.
which shows how much time has passed since 1996. But Ali was murdered on the streets in 1997. He was very close with two trans girls. One was named Kiki Freeman and the other was Dionne Webster. And they were both murdered in the year prior to Ali's death. And their murders were not solved. And Ali was really devastated by their murders. And, when Kiki and Dionne were murdered, he actually went to the police precincts where the murders happened. And
Would that be the 6th precinct?
No. That was around the time when Times Square was getting...
the Times... Okay, right.
So a lot of these kids, especially the trans kids who were prostituting, used to hang out in Times Square. And when Times Square got...
Gentrified,
Disneyfied, whatever it got, Giuliani-fied, a lot of them went up for... I don't really understand why, but a lot of them went up to Harlem and the South Bronx.
Right.
And, Kiki was found dead in an abandoned building in the South Bronx. Dionne was found dead on the street in Harlem. And Ali was shot point blank on the head on West 135th Street in Harlem.
Was this because they were gay, or was this an anti-prostitution thing?
The
way, for example, a female prostitute would be murdered? Or?
None of their murders were ever solved, much to my dismay. So, I can only speculate. All three of them ended up having pretty serious drug problems. So there's a part of me that wonders if they were getting into this thing. Some of these kids would start getting drugs on credit from the drug dealers, and then if they didn't pay them back, this kind of point blank to the head thing, that feels like an execution for a drug thing to me, but it wasn't solved.
Gives new meaning to debt management, doesn't it?
But when Ali would go to the police precincts, with evidence and clues and demand that the police, take these murders seriously, I was really inspired by that. I mean, Ali had this quality of really caring about the other kids. They were his family. And he kind of saw their human worth and their human value in a situation where very few people were looking at that and respecting that.
It's wonderful that you named the shelter after him. Her.
I was devastated when Ali was killed. And these kids would die, and it was like nothing would be in the media. The police wouldn't investigate it. It was like nothing. It was like they just vanished. And I really couldn't bear the thought of Ali vanishing like that. So, when it was time to start this new program, the first shelter program for homeless youth in New York City, I really wanted to name it after Ali. And what we did with our first fundraisers, we used to do a variety show in the West Village on Christopher Street at the Lucille Lortel Theater. Mm-hmm. For the first 5 years or so of the organization, we would have these variety shows where we'd have stars, but also kids, and a whole bunch of people would put on their show, and we would call it Luscious to also honor that side of Luscious and Ali's varied identity.
What can people do if someone wishes to give you some money? Or make you part of his or her estate plan or something?
Well, we really need support. We've become the largest organization, as I said, for homeless LGBT youth in the country, and we're now housing 57 young people every night and providing 2 drop-in centers. We provide medical care, food, showers, mental health treatment, substance abuse treatment. But we're in this climate where the government is just cutting and cutting and cutting, and I'm not willing to put the kids out in the street. I'm not willing to cut back on what they so desperately need. So we really do need support from members of the community. So anybody that wishes to support us can go to our website, which is www.ali, that's A-L-I, Forney, F-O-R-N-E-Y, Center. So it's one word, aliforneycenter.org. And if you want to volunteer, there's stuff on the website telling you how to go about doing that. If you want to donate to us, there's stuff on the website about that. Something that's nice that's happened recently is that a fair number of people have approached us who are getting married. and getting their gay marriages, and then they're saying, instead of, in lieu of giving us gifts, make donations to the Forney Center. So we've probably gotten $15,000 in the last 2 months from gay marriages. So I'm hoping that this becomes like a growth industry for us.
Well, I think it's the coolest thing going. Instead of flowers, having people send money to the Forney Center.
Yes, now that our adults have this wonderful right that we've won, let's also make sure that our kids have the right to have a safe bed to sleep in at night.
Hello, preferably alone. And let's give the website, shall we?
Yes, it's www.aliforneycenter.org, aliforneycenter.org.
Is there a telephone number people can call?
If a young person needs help,
yes,
and is looking for shelter or food, yes, or any of the assistance we provide, they should contact our drop-in center in Chelsea. And the telephone number there is 212-206-0574.
Can you give that again?
212-206-0574.
And if you're a young person and you need help, you go to this nice man. He really will help.
And if you're looking to donate or contribute or volunteer, I would go to our website and it'll direct you on how to help
volunteer.
with that.
How can people volunteer? What can they do?
Well, we have 7 different residential sites scattered around the city. Mostly we rent apartments, like 3-bedroom apartments, to kind of create a home-like environment for the kids. We don't want them to be in these big institutional shelters.
This is appalling. This is just shocking. I'm just appalled. I mean, that people
But in
are
terms
suffering.
of what you asked, what people could do. So like volunteers come and prepare meals for the young people. They do groups and workshops with the young people. If people want to make a long-term serious commitment, we have a life coach program. But that we ask people to make a commitment of a year to really get more intimately involved with the young kids' lives, helping them. We kind of partner them up with life coaches and help them, with career counseling, help them get their finances in order, and then when they move out on their own, even help them look for their own apartments and kind of be like that big brother or a parent that they don't have in real life.
Well, how do you weed out the child molesters?
We have a rigorous evaluation program, and we check their criminal backgrounds.
What if they're first-time child molesters who have no criminal background?
They spend most of that year in a congregate setting with staff present. They wouldn't be alone with the young people. If they were out there to hurt the kids, presumably in that year period, we would see that. We've never had that experience.
I'll be honest with you. I've never heard of such appalling, terrible things happening to young people. I mean, I've heard of them, but what can you do? I mean, this is awful. This is unbelievable.
I feel that this is the worst attack against the LGBT community in our time. That thousands, tens of thousands of kids are being deprived of the love and support of their families and thrown out to the streets.
What? These people have no love? They couldn't throw out their own children if they had love.
Well,
these people are not Christian. They're not human. They're taking up space on the earth.
It really shows what a brutal, cruel, destructive thing homophobia is. I mean, look, we've got all of these politicians and all of these religious leaders pushing homophobia as hard as they possibly can. I feel like when they do that, they are endangering the welfare of children. Because if you're going around saying, to be gay is evil, to be gay is sinful, to be gay is unacceptable, we can't accept gay people in our society, we can't treat them as equal in our society, and people give credence to that, then what do they do when they suddenly have a gay child sitting in their living room? It's like we're training parents to not be able to cope with their gay kids.
And if they're willing to accept outside information from politicians who don't know their children, clearly these people are not among the brightest.
So, I feel like, folks like Michelle Bachmann and Rick Perry and the politicians
I think these people are evil.
That are, pushing homophobia really hard. And, even Archbishop Dolan, who was going around saying...
Please, he makes me sick. He makes me absolutely sick.
He was acting like the world was going to come to an end if gay marriage passed in New York. So, you know,
And he seems pretty damn swishy to me. So
the
what's he hiding?
people who believe that stuff, you know, they're just being trained on how to not accept their kids.
And let's not forget about dear Cardinal Spellman, also known as Connie.
Well, I'd love to forget about Cardinal Spellman.
Oh, darling, your drag is divine, but your person
You know,
is on fire.
it's crazy because I live about 90 miles outside of the city, and I live about 10 miles from like the palace in the Catskills,
Yes.
where Cardinal Spellman used to bring his like altar butt boys, and it just gives me bad vibes just thinking that
Let me tell you
it's
something.
nearby.
When I was a little Catholic schoolboy, I learned when a priest tells you to get down on your knees, don't you fucking do it. Because they don't mean they want you to pray. Ooh. Ah. Anyway.
Do we have any more time, or are we running out of time?
No, we have plenty of time.
Because, you know, there's something important I want to talk about,
Yes.
which is this campaign that we're launching in New York City and New York State.
Yes, but we're on film, and it may not, by the time this airs, the campaign might have come and gone.
Well, in the event, it's probably going to go on for years, so
Oh, okay.
can I talk about it?
Of course you can. But you have to do it within 5 minutes.
Okay. So one of the things that's really frustrated me as I've tried to create the support to house these kids is the lack of support from the mayor and the governor. Now, these are politicians who say that they are responsive and care about LGBT issues and LGBT concerns.
Well,
Now, I know
the
that,
cameras are around.
and I know that, you know, when I'm speaking to somebody who's with the T, that they probably really roll their eyes because of the lack of support for
With the
gender.
T? What do you mean?
The trans community is I think has good reasons not to think that they're the greatest of friends. But I really want to put more political pressure on the government to house these kids.
How?
You know, we pay taxes. Gay people pay taxes.
How do we put political pressure on these people?
Well, we've launched this thing in the Campaign for Youth Shelter, and we're asking that the city and the state agree to combine to provide $3 million a year to create 100 new beds each year until such time as there are no longer waiting lists at the youth shelters. Right now, tonight, we have 180 kids that we have to turn away because of our waiting list. There are estimated to be 1,000 LGBT youth on the streets of New York
I'm gonna
City
start crying in a second.
with
This is
nowhere
awful.
to go, living in the most horrible, degrading, painful, and frightening conditions possible, struggling to survive by themselves alone on the streets. And I just think that we as a community have to demand that our kids be protected. We gay people pay a lot of taxes, and our kids are more at risk than any other kids. Billions of dollars go into the programs that support youth, but our kids barely get
All right,
anything.
how do we do this? We're running out of time.
We have to let our governor know that we demand that youth be sheltered.
How
We have
do
to
we
let
do
our
that?
mayor
We
know.
call, we
call.
email?
We have to let our city council people know. We have to let our state senators know, and we have to let our state assembly people know. So wherever you live, call up your state senator, your state assembly person, and call the governor's office and say you support the Campaign for Youth Shelter. It's unacceptable that youth be left on the streets with nowhere to go.
Even though right now they're cutting social services and presumably snatching Medicare away from old folks and other.
You know, it's not only is it inhumane to leave these kids on the street, it's fiscally stupid. It's like when a child is on the street, they survive through prostitution or drugs. They become criminalized, they become HIV infected. Any of that, dealing with any of that costs a lot more than giving a kid a shelter bed.
Yes, and also people like Bloomberg who might hire one of these children might then get some dreadful, deadly venereal disease, which is so vulgar, my dear.
Well, I don't want to speculate about that, but I do want to hold Bloomberg and Cuomo accountable for responding to our community. And I don't think there's a worse thing going on in our community right now than the thousands of kids who are being thrown to the streets.
I agree. And I'm shocked and I'm terrified that our own community allows this to happen. Even if Cuomo and Bloomberg and their hench persons will not help, although Cuomo did give us gay marriage. That's not,
You know, but that's the thing. I think that he heard
We
loud and
should
clear
help.
from the
We
community
should help,
that we
yes.
wanted gay marriage. So he needs to hear loud and clear from our community that we want our kids to be taken care of.
it's a different deal, you know that.
Well, I know gay marriage didn't really cost anything.
Right, and gay marriage is about rights of inheritance and rich gay guys like that, whereas poor
But
street
let's
kids,
look at it that
nobody
way. Gay marriage is going to put millions of new tax revenues into the state and the city's coffers.
cares. We gay folk should help our own children. If we see, all right, I'm walking down the street. I see some little gay person hustler, like 12 years old. What do I do?
You can tell them
if I call the police, this poor kid is taken off to God knows where.
You can tell them to reach out to the Ali Forney Center. But right now, I think the most important thing you could do is call your governor and say, why is this kid on the street? We need the support so that these kids have places to go.
Yes. Anyway, why don't you give your website, if you want to donate, if you want to do something, volunteer, if you want to, if you want to include them in your will, if you want to do something, for God's sake, what's your website?
It's www.aliforneycenter.org. That's ALIFORNEYCENTER, all one word, aliforneycenter.org.
Okay. And if you're a young person on the street who needs help, why don't you give them your telephone number?
212-206-0574.
Can you repeat that?
212-206-0574.
What if their parents are out there and they're, I can't have a gay child. Oh my God.
If you are a parent who is struggling with having a gay child and want help coping with it, or want to help working, if you're having bad communication, bad issues with your child, we can actually provide counseling to you and in groups to you and your children. So you can reach out to the Ali Forney Center at 212-206-0574 for that help. I would also strongly urge you, if you're a parent struggling with accepting your child, to reach out to PFLAG. PFLAG has support groups.
Parents and Friends of Gays.
For parents and friends of gays. And a lot of people find that very helpful, just to be able to see how other people have coped and how other people have
It's
dealt.
no big deal, for God's sake. It's one of the facts of life. Some people are gay, some people are straight. Bruh. Anyway, my guest has been Mr. Carl Siciliano, who runs the largest. Why don't you tell me? I'm so shocked by all the awful stuff that you've told me. Honestly, even my theatrical persona wafted away in the dust, because this is awful. Help these kids, damn it.
Yeah, we're the largest organization for homeless LGBT youth in the United States, but we have 58 beds, and there are tens of thousands of kids who need those beds. So
58 beds.
We're
like a boutique hotel.
We're like this little ant compared to a mountain.
Yes.
So help us get bigger.
Yes.
You be generous to us and hold
Ali Forney Center. Mention the thing one more time. Fast.
aliforneycenter.org. But
and that's
tell your politicians that they have to support us as well.
And you know how much I love you, and you know even if no one else loves you, I love you. And if you're a young LGBT person out there, contact the Ali Forney Center. They will help you. I love you a lot. I will see you next time. I must hit that lousy bye-bye button. I hate to do this. I really hate to do this, because this show is really important to me. I think it's great what you're saying, and it would be wonderful if we could help everyone.
Well, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And love you a lot, and I will see you next time. And if you're gay, contact the Ali Forney Center. If you're a gay young person who needs help, they will help you. Love you. See you next time. Bye. My guest has been Justice Barbara Jaffe. I'm Diana Montford. You know how much I love you, even if no one else loves you. I love you. I will see you next time. I have to hit that bye-bye button, and we're running late. And I love you a lot, and I'll see you next time. Love you. Bye. See you next time. You take real good care of yourself. You know I love you, so be good. And I will talk to you next time, and I will see you next time. But hit that bye-bye button. And Dan Court has been a great sport, and you should vote for him because he's a really decent, nice guy. And I certainly plan to vote for him. Now, if you'll excuse me. Excuse me. It's very awkward to bend over. Okay. I love you a lot. I'll see you next time. Bye. Vote for Dan Court, September 13th.
This is the logo.
29:47. We ran slightly over, but they'll show it, won't they?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it gets cut off. It'll get cut off at the 28, but you did. You remember you have a minute of black in the beginning.
Right. So yeah. And I keep saying throughout, vote for Dan, so they'll get the message. So cool.
So I should look more at you or more at the
whatever
at
you
the
feel
eye?
is more. Hi, I'm Diana Montford, and this is, yes, the Diana Montford Show. My guest is